The mansion of Daniel Cruz in Santiago, Chile, was a fortress of silence and luxury. Since the death of his wife 2 years earlier, the house nestled in the hills of La Dehesa, overlooking the Andes, had lost its soul. Daniel, a mining magnate who spent more time on private jets than in his own home, had become a ghostly father to his 2 children, Valeria, 9 years old, and Andres, 8. Consumed by work and a grief he didn't know how to process, he believed he was fulfilling his duty by providing them the best schools and an army of staff. However, he failed to see that his children's sadness was not only because of their mother's absence, but also his own. One Tuesday, fate intervened. An unexpected snowstorm in Toronto canceled a multi-million-dollar merger. And for the first time in years, Daniel found himself on a flight home a day earlier than expected. He decided not to warn anyone, fantasizing about the idea of surprising his children. He landed in Santiago in the mid-afternoon, a time when he would normally be in a boardroom thousands of kilometers away. As his car slid through the tree-lined streets toward his mansion, he felt a strange mix of anticipation and guilt. He knew he would find the house in its usual orderly, melancholic silence, with the children playing quietly in their rooms. However, when he entered, the usual silence had been replaced by something he hadn't heard in 2 years. Laughter. Genuine, loud laughter of children coming from the grand, formal dining room. That dining room, with its long mahogany table and crystal chandelier, had been the heart of family life when his wife was alive. But since her death, it had remained closed off, a relic of happier times. Confused, and with his heart beating with strange apprehension, he tiptoed down the marble hallway and peeked through the half-open door. The scene he saw didn't just surprise him. It completely disarmed him, bringing tears to his eyes instantly. There, sitting at the big table, were Valeria and Andres, their faces lit up with a joy he thought was lost forever. In front of them, a young woman in a simple green maid's uniform was serving 2 generous slices of homemade chocolate cake. She was Laura, the new housekeeper he had hired barely a month ago. She wasn't just serving them, she was celebrating with them. She had placed a small hand-drawn sign that said, "Smile Day," and all 3 of them wore ridiculous party hats. Laura told them a joke, and the laughter of his children was so pure and so loud that Daniel felt a physical ache in his heart, a sweet pain of rediscovered happiness and devastating guilt. If this touching scene has already moved you, imagine how it changed this family's life forever. Daniel stayed there, hidden in the shadow of the hallway, watching. He saw how Laura not only gave them cake, but also listened to them. He saw his daughter Valeria, usually so withdrawn, tell a long story about her day at school, gesturing with enthusiasm. He saw his son Andres, always so serious, perform a funny imitation that made Laura laugh until tears rolled down her cheeks. She wasn't an employee simply doing her job. She was a person filling an immense void with genuine affection, bringing light to the darkest corners of his home and his children's hearts. He realized that this woman, in just a month, had given his children something that he, with all his fortune, had not been able to give them in 2 years: happiness. The tears streaming down Daniel's face were not of sorrow for his lost wife, but of overwhelming gratitude toward this stranger and a deep shame for his own blindness. He had been so busy building an empire for his children that he had forgotten to build a home for them. He had hired tutors to educate their minds, but he had completely neglected their souls. And now, a young housekeeper, armed only with a chocolate cake and a kind heart, was doing the work that was rightfully his. He felt like a failure, but also, for the first time, he felt a spark of hope. He didn't interrupt the celebration. Instead, he withdrew silently to his study and waited. Later that night, after the children had fallen asleep, happy and exhausted, he spoke with them. He sat at the edge of their beds, something he hadn't done since the funeral. "Did you have fun today?" he asked. "Yes, Dad," Andres exclaimed. "It was Smile Day." Valeria added softly, "Laura says Mom also used to make special days like this." The revelation hit him. Laura wasn't trying to replace his wife. She was honoring her memory. Then Andres said something that completely disarmed him. "Laura says you work very hard to take care of us, but that you also miss Mom, just like we do." The empathy of the housekeeper was astonishing. She had not only cared for his children, but also protected his image as a father, justifying his absence in a way they could understand. Later, Daniel found Laura in the kitchen, quietly cleaning. He didn't know what to say. The words, "thank you," felt far too small. Laura began, her voice husky. "What I did today," she turned, her expression humble. "I just wanted to see them smile, sir. The house was so quiet." Daniel nodded, unable to speak, his throat tight with an emotion he didn't know how to handle. The next day, Daniel woke up feeling like a different man. The revelation of the day before had not been just an emotional moment. It had been a cataclysm in his list of priorities. He looked at himself in the mirror and saw a man who had been running in the wrong direction. He picked up his phone, the instrument that ruled his life, and with steel-like determination made a call that would change his future and his family's. "Mariana, cancel all my meetings this week," he told his assistant. "But sir, the board meeting in New York?" "Cancel it. I have urgent family matters to attend to." He hung up the phone and felt a lightness he hadn't experienced in years. He walked into the dining room, where Laura was serving breakfast to the children. The routine was the same as always, but he was no longer the same man. He took an apron from the hook on the wall, an object he hadn't touched in years, and tied it around his waist. Valeria and Andres stared at him wide-eyed. Laura was equally surprised. "Pancakes?" he asked, his voice a little uncertain. "Who wants Dad to make pancakes?" The shouts of joy from his children were the only answer he needed. While he clumsily cooked at first, filling the kitchen with smoke and laughter, he felt the layers of formality and distance melting away. He saw his children not as responsibilities, but as the wonderful, fun people they were. After breakfast, he approached Laura, who was watching the scene with a discreet smile. "Laura," he said, "what happened yesterday opened my eyes. I realized I've been failing as a father." She tried to protest, but he stopped her. "I also realized this family needs you, not just to keep the house clean." Then he made her a proposal that left her speechless. "I want to offer you a new position. You will no longer be the housekeeper. I want you to be the children's official governess. Your only responsibility will be their well-being and their happiness. I want you to organize more Smile Days. I want you to fill this house with life. Your salary will be tripled, and you'll have every resource you need." Laura, with tears in her eyes, accepted. But it was Daniel's last words that sealed their new family bond. "Thank you," he said, his voice filled with a newfound humility. "Thank you for reminding me how to be a father." From that day forward, the Cruz mansion stopped being a fortress of silence. It filled with art projects, music, improvised tea parties, and the constant sound of children's laughter. Daniel became a student of fatherhood, learning from Laura how to connect with his children through small things, a board game, a walk in the garden, a heartfelt conversation before bed. he rediscovered the joy of simply being dad, a title he realized was far more valuable than CEO. Laura flourished in her new role. Her official title was governess, but in reality, she became the heart of the family, a figure who blended the wisdom of an older sister, the tenderness of an aunt, and the warmth of a mother. She created an environment where Valeria and Andres not only felt safe, but also seen, heard, and celebrated for who they were. The memory of their mother was still present, but it was no longer a shadow of sadness. Instead, it became a light of inspiration that Laura helped keep alive. Daniel's relationship with his children transformed. They went from being almost strangers, living under the same roof, to a united team. He learned the names of their friends, their secret fears, and their wildest dreams. And they, in turn, discovered that behind the busy businessman was a fun, caring, and vulnerable father who loved them more than anything in the world. The wound of their loss began to heal, replaced by the strength of their renewed family bond. The story concludes a year later, on Valeria's birthday. The grand dining room, which a year earlier had been the setting of a silent revelation, was now filled with children, balloons, and music. Daniel, wearing a ridiculous party hat, was at the center of it all, organizing the games. Laura brought in the cake, this time a huge, elaborate one, and everyone sang. When Valeria blew out the candles, she looked first at her father and then at Laura, and her eyes sparkled with complete happiness. The millionaire who came home early had not only seen a scene that made him cry, he saw the roadmap back to his family, and he had the courage to follow it all the way home. Because, in the end, what truly turns a house into a home is not wealth, but love